Welcome to Reframed, Real Life Re-storied, a podcast where we explore mental health as a journey instead of a destination. I'm Haze Schepmyer. I'm a life event transitions mediator, and I'll be hosting these conversations which are brought to you by Black Mental Health Canada. Princess Ecclestone is working behind the scenes as our moderator and technical producer to track your questions and comments and pass them along to me. Our guest today is Victoria Lewis, a recent computer science graduate from the University of Toronto, Mississauga, whose mental health journey has been forged by the tension of balancing early personal independence, high professional expectations, and societal labels that have impacted her identity and sense of belonging. Originally from Jamaica, Victoria moved to Canada in 2022 at 16 years old to begin university as an accelerated learner. That transition marked a massive turning point where Victoria had to learn quickly how to succeed in her studies, take care of herself, navigate uncertainty, and adapt to new responsibilities in unfamiliar environments. She tried to meet those challenges by holding herself accountable to an impossible, self-imposed standard of perfection, which eventually eroded as she found herself trapped in a cycle of self-induced isolation. Her beliefs about her identity and her sense of belonging shifted when she decided to reflect on those moments of isolation instead of repressing them. Now, at 19 years old, Victoria is in the work of releasing her preoccupation with perfection so she can focus on her daily challenge of generating momentum for professional development and personal growth. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
All right,
excited
where
to
do you
be.
want to start? Yeah, where would you like to start?
Um, I guess we could start in 2022. When I first came to Canada, I, it's interesting. When I look back at the 16-year-old version of me, getting on that plane, getting ready to leave Jamaica and everything else behind and come to Canada, it's almost as though looking at someone completely different. It's like two different people between then and now. Because when I think about the journey I've gone on as far as, mental health, self-image, and the person that I've become over those years, I think that we are very different, but I definitely think 16-year-old me would be proud of how far we've come and kind of proud of the person that we've grown into. So,
Okay, that's the starting statement, the baseline.
yes.
Yes, yes. And thinking of that is important. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna elaborate more, I think, on the kind of experience of coming up here. When I came up, because I was fresh out of high school, still incredibly, incredibly young, and I think it was interesting because I had all of these kind of expectations of what university would be like. You see it on TV all the time. Like, you go to college and you become this new person and you just completely flourish. Because I think even at that time, yes, I was a perfectionist. Yes, I kind of had all of these issues with self image, but I kept thinking I would just leave and it would resolve itself. That I would, leave kind of this current, I would leave the old version of me behind at that airport, and I would kind of go and change and become this whole new person. And I remember first year just being so incredibly difficult because very quickly I realized you do not just shed your skin. We are not sticks. We don't just shed our skin. The person that you left with is the person you're arriving with. And I think a lot of first year was very difficult because I kept trying to balance kind of the old version of Victoria, which was, you have to be perfect, you have to get everything done on time, you have to overperform, you have to be the best, and managing old Victoria with this idea of a person that I thought I was supposed to be when I left. I thought that you make it to college and you can manage everything. You can be the sociable person, you can join the clubs, you can do the leadership, you can get the good grades. And I think for a long time I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to be everything for everyone all at once. And I think that was something that I really struggled with towards the beginning. But I do think over time, I think a lot of that kind of perfectionism and that fixation on needing to be better, I think eventually it did start to occur to me that, you can't be perfect and be a person. You can't fixate on being the best at everything all the time while still like being somebody that enjoys life and experiences things and actually like goes through these milestones and grows and changes and doesn't just push past them in the hopes of achieving an arbitrary goal that you probably won't make it to because perfection isn't really possible. And so, yeah, and I think all of that, like, I think just that entire process has gotten me to, where I am now, where I can say, I'm not perfect. I do still, ironically, I'm not perfect. I do still have times where I kind of fall back into those old habits. But I think for the most part, I am kind of growing into this idea of self that's like, perhaps the best version of you is the version of you that makes you feel most fulfilled, not necessarily the version of you that looks the best or looks the most perfect.
Thank you. What I'm curious to hear is you spoke about being under that load of so many priorities, and how did you even start to sort through them? What was your thought process? How did you maybe incorporate yourself into that pile? What was that like?
Well, I think the short answer is that I just didn't incorporate myself for a long time. I think there were a list of things to do, and in my mind, there were things to be done, so I did them. And I just wasn't a high priority on that list because in my mind, there are always these things that take precedent over like taking care of yourself. Because as obvious as I guess it seems looking back, that like taking care of yourself is an integral part of like succeeding in anything you do, in my mind, it was just, it doesn't matter the cost to self as long as you meet the deadlines, as long as you get things done. So it was doing as much as I possibly could and then not not paying attention to how that affected me, not caring about what was happening with me afterwards. And so there was like this point of first year where like I did try to do everything. There was the age barrier a little bit. Like I did try to do student leadership and I did try to do a volunteer paramedic thing, and both of them I actually made it pretty far with both of them, but at the last minute they reviewed my age and I didn't qualify anymore. So I did make an attempt to do a lot of different things, but outside of that, I was just self isolating. I wasn't engaging with the world. I wasn't actually enjoying any of it. I was trying to just keep up appearances. And to be honest, I think part of the problem too was that I couldn't prioritize anything necessarily. I kept thinking like everything was equally important to maintain equally as well, which I think was part of the issue, is that I kept thinking, well, okay, obviously you have to maintain your grades, this is school, etc., etc., but also you have to maintain your standing in these clubs or these volunteer positions or whatever, because that needs to look good on your resume. You need that for grad school, but also you need to go out and socialize with people because networking, people need to see you. And I didn't understand what the word networking meant. I didn't know what it meant to go out and talk to people. This was all very new and intense. You have to do the networking and you have to be present and be there and be everything all the time, and you have to be energetic because people aren't going to want to talk to you if you're not energetic. People won't be interested if you're not energetic. And it was so much like not me that I had to form into something that looked like me, that I didn't have the energy for anything else. I would come back to my dorm and I would just be so completely checked out. I didn't want to do anything with anyone ever because I just didn't have it in me anymore. So, to answer your question, there was no priority list except perhaps to say that I was not on it.
Okay. Okay, how did you get on it at some point? You described quite a bit of a descent, a downward spiral, if that kind of captures the visual a little bit. What was the bottom of that? When did you change direction or flatten out?
I think, I'm sure it probably would be cleaner, maybe, to say that this happened all at once. You know, that I had some moment of grand self reflection and it occurred to me that I need to care about myself and that I matter and all of that. But I don't know that I can say it was one specific moment as much as I think it was a gradual, like, I can't do this anymore. Because I think you get a lot of signs that this isn't a good thing to be doing. Like I used to get throughout university what I would call stress sickness, which is every semester, like clockwork around midterm time or final exam time, I would get like really, really sick. And I would get like a fever, sore throat, cough. I was dizzy, I was exhausted. It was not a great time. And I knew what it was, but it never actually did anything to stop me from pushing myself to the limit because I kept thinking, like, you know, your body is just a vehicle for success. You just need to keep it moving. You just need to keep it pushing. And that wasn't the most productive train of thought. Well, it wasn't the healthiest train of thought. It was the most productive train of thought. And so things did get done. The state under which I got them done under is a separate question, but things did get done. Um, but I think what would happen is like I was getting sick, and then I think I was just burning out because that first year I had tried a bunch of things, none of them really worked. It was kind of disheartening too because I went through the entire process just to be told at the last minute you can't do this because you're too young. And then second year I was like, okay, what can I do? What should I do? Maybe I should I like take a beat and try to figure things out? Should I just keep getting involved? So second year was like the clubs year where if first year was leadership, second year was clubs, and I tried to get into as many clubs as I could do. I did undergraduate research, I did robotics, I did like anything and everything that I thought was interesting. And then third year, I think is when it really started going downhill because third year I started working on top of everything else. And I think maybe that was the final straw because third year I was trying clubs, I was having to do school, I was, you know, working, I was like trying to network, I was trying to like, and then you have to come home and obviously you have like your other real life responsibilities you have to take care of because you're living independently, so you have to kind of keep on top of the cleaning, keep on top of the laundry, keep on top of the cooking, keep on top of everything. And it was like I just remember constantly just running on empty. Like I would be at school, I kid you not, sometimes for up to like 12 hours out of the day because there were so many things to do and I couldn't get it all reasonably done by like 8 hours. So I would be there for like 12 hours, which nobody realistically should be at school for 12 hours. Um and so I'd be there all day and I'd just be so exhausted. And I just remember like everything just started slipping away. Like I was trying to like keep working, but that was really difficult. I had to like leave eventually because I couldn't manage it anymore. School was like my grades were dropping because I couldn't like I just didn't have the energy. I was either falling asleep in class or I wasn't paying attention or I was just exhausted. And I didn't have the strength to go to events, to network. What would I say? I could barely I wasn't there. And I would dread that alarm clock every morning because I was never getting enough sleep for that thing to go off. And I don't know, it was just, it was so tough. But I think that semester was like, it just, it all came to a head. Like everything that had been building, it all just kind of started like spilling over. And I think at that moment, I was like, I need to do something. Like maybe I don't know what, but something needs to be done because this is unproductive. Like I was like emailing professors trying to see what I could get like done, if I could get like extensions, if I could get like just anything because I was so overwhelmed with everything I couldn't do it. And I was like, okay, at this point, Victoria, if all of this is in service of productivity and you can no longer be productive, you have to do something. You can't just sit here and say, okay, I'm just going to put it off and put it off and put it off. To what end? So I think that was helpful in the sense of like, at least I was able to kind of stop and go, if everything you're sacrificing is for this, and this thing is now too getting sacrificed, maybe it's time to call it quits. Maybe it's time to seek out professional help. Maybe it's time to do something outside of this. Yeah.
Okay. And then what did you do? That was a very thank you for that detailed kind of walkthrough of that. So it took essentially 3 years. It was 3 years of overwhelm and trying to manage those high professional expectations, navigating early independence. But you said third year was kind of when it all spilled over, and that was the right time to look for help. What did you do? Where did you start?
So I actually started with the student services office. They had kind of therapists there that you could speak to about kind of what's going on, like the stress you're under, kind of how to, deal with that. And I went there and I met like a really wonderful therapist. I met a really wonderful therapist and she kind of helped me. I think one of the first things she said to me was like, you should have come a lot sooner. Like it probably would have helped you if you came a lot sooner. And because I think this whole time I had it in my head that like I didn't need to go because I was doing fine. Like externally it looked fine, which meant I didn't need to go. And I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and I finally went, and it was like relieving, I think, to have someone else acknowledge that like, yeah, this is difficult. This is maybe not the best of situations. Um but it's okay. We'll figure something out. And she was honestly instrumental in helping me to kind of figure out what next steps were because I saw her within the last maybe 2 months of being at university. But she was really instrumental in kind of guiding me and saying, "Hey, what do we do after this? What's the plan? Like we're going to get you in some kind of like therapy. We're going to get you in some kind of treatment like beyond me. We're going to see what we're gonna do about, future plans, like what's the kind of direction there, and we're gonna see how much we can accomplish in this time span." And she was just incredibly understanding. And I remember like after these sessions, I was actually talking about it to a friend, like as I was thinking about all of this, that after these sessions I would sleep really, really well. Because I think it was just a relief to know that like it wasn't my responsibility for at least like one day, that I didn't have to deal with all of it for one day. And so that was like a good starting point. I think it also kind of gave me a chance to slow down because on top of everything, I graduated early. This is supposed to be a 4-year program, and I did it in 3. And which meant that I had spent my entire university career overloading on courses. And I think this like last 2 months, that last semester, I had taken just one because I only had one left to graduate. And I think the combination of like the lower workload, plus I wasn't actually working, plus the therapy made it a lot easier to kind of step back and be like, maybe, just maybe, you were doing a little bit too much. And maybe that was the issue.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And in that share, you referenced a friend that you were able to kind of trust and share some of your insights. I'm curious that you spoke about self isolation. Was that did that look like people trying to help you and you kind of gently declining? Was it you just not showing up? What was who was around you during those times, and how did that isolation evolve?
I I think a part of it was like I had friends, I think, but they were very I was I think amicable. I was polite. Like as far as school went, like university, I had friends and I was polite, but I think that was it. Like it wasn't really I wasn't making an attempt to connect, to be involved, to lean on them, and I was there and I was present when they needed me, but that was kind of it. Like I was there, you need me, and then okay, back to my bubble. Um, I just couldn't handle like one more responsibility. But the friend that I'm specifically referring to, confiding in, those were my friends from back home, my friends from Jamaica, who unfortunately were unsurprised by this whole turn of events because it it's been a big part of who I am. It pushed through to get the job done at any cost, and I've always been that kind of person. And I think perhaps that was kind of alarming. Well, not per se alarming, but I think a bit of a wake up call when it's like, okay, these people that have known you, because I've known them for 8 going on 9 years now, and these people that have known me for, these formative years, this huge part of my life, are saying things like, yeah, I mean, I could see that coming. Or when I like speak to someone that I haven't spoken to in maybe like a year or so, and he says, you really haven't changed from high school. And it's like this identification of like, oh, it's the same patterns. And none of this was meant to be hurtful. Like it's like a friend identifying that like, hey man, I think you need to stop. Like I think it's gone far enough. I think you need to stop. Um but it was all of these people that I had like known for so long being like, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I like we saw the behavior coming. They weren't hearing about this in real time because again, self-isolation. But once I did start talking, they were like, yeah, yeah, okay, we see it. Um, so a lot of my self-isolation, it was also not really going to physical events because navigating people like over the phone was a lot easier than I think going out and seeing people, because then that's one more thing you have to be aware of. You have to be aware of kind of how you're presenting yourself, you have to be aware of how you're engaging, you have to seem like engaged and upbeat and performing the entire night, and I didn't have the capacity for it. So I was primarily texting people. I don't even think I was calling anybody at that point. I think it was just primarily texting people. Um, but that's kind of what I was doing for the longest while. I was barely speaking to anybody, barely engaging with anybody. Um, and then it was when I kind of started to come out of that and talk to people, like talk to my old friends, that I was like, oh, yeah, I, yeah, okay, maybe something does need to be done here.
And it's interesting because you're almost being given a chance to apply some of what you have learned in that sense because you're continuing your education, you're continuing your studies, you're moving to a new country later this year to start another university degree. So, how is having looked back in the way that you look back, what are you going to do differently coming up if this has been your pattern? What are you going to change coming up?
I definitely think moving forward, one of my priorities will be to take care of myself so I can actually enjoy the experience. The trouble is, I think when you're kind of an advanced learner your whole life, even if nobody says it to you directly, there is this understanding that it's kind of grades above all, performance above all. It doesn't really matter what happens you as long as you're performing. And that a lot of things fall through the cracks. Like psychosocial development is absolutely not on par with that of your peers because, again, you've prioritized academic excellence your whole life or whatever the thing is that you're gifted at. And it's done to such a degree that you don't, like, it kind of consumes you in this really unhealthy, unproductive way. And what I was realizing looking back on it is like I've kind of spent my whole life with this mentality of you just need to do good enough to get to the next thing. You just need to do good enough to get to the next thing. And I keep pushing through and pushing through and pushing through, so much so that it prevents me from like meaningfully enjoying the things that I'm actually doing. Like a lot of my um like a lot of my university memories, I tried to do some stuff, but I couldn't, not to the extent that I wanted to. I never did anything to the extent that I wanted to because I was always so preoccupied with having to be the best and do all of these things and just overperform, and this fixation on like, you know, you're the gifted kid, you're the young one. You have to kind of keep proving like why you belong here, why you're like deserve to be here. I think that whole fixation prevented me from really enjoying university, high school to a degree. And so I think one of the things that I am definitely intending on changing is when I go over there, I want to just enjoy it. Like, yes, you have to study and you have to get good grades, but I also just want to enjoy the experience. I don't feel like I spend very much time enjoying things, and I'm nearly 20. I feel like that's the peak time to be enjoying things and learning new experiences and, you know, exploring the world. And so I think that's a big part of it. I think I'll definitely reach out and communicate more. And just because, but I think I've made a lot of progress with that over this year. Um, and I think, you know, I'm also just gonna like take the opportunities as they come. I told myself that this year was my just say yes year. And so everything I've done this year has been because when an opportunity comes around, my rule is I will say yes and I will try to see it through to the best of my ability. Like the only way I'll decline is if I legitimately can't, like I don't have the time. But anytime an opportunity comes around, I will take it or I will go for it because worst that happens, they say no. There's really no, you don't lose anything. But best case scenario, you are exposed to this kind of whole new world of like opportunities and experiences that you never thought you would have had prior. So, yeah, the goal is mainly just to enjoy myself, to take care of myself mentally, physically, and experience grad school.
Something that I'm hearing, which is interesting, is that you accelerated your degree to 3 years for the academic component, but this year has actually been a gap year for you. So you took off from studying. So it's almost like you still ended up with a 4 year degree in some capacity, but this last year has been learning about your experiences and what it is that you missed out in the first three. So you're almost learning that it sounds like there's a piece of additional education about who you are as a person and what you want to kind of take forward. So just thinking about that piece, taking a gap year, is that something that had ever occurred to you? Is that something, what was it like to decide after accelerating through these 3 years, I'm actually going to take a year off?
Had you asked me at any point before this, I would have sworn up and down you would never catch me taking a gap year because I wouldn't know what to do in a gap year, right? I'm someone that works very well with expectations and deadlines and things to be done. I don't do well with just sitting down and being. But then I it's interesting. Like looking it's interesting because it's like now that I'm kind of towards the end of the gap year, I can recognize that like I needed to take it and I needed to stop. But at the same time, had you asked me at any point prior to this gap year, prior to me having to make the decision on it, I would have said absolutely not. Because I ended up taking it for primarily I ended up taking it because I was doing this like international move again, and it's to a country where I don't like, I'm not fluent in the language. It's an entirely new environment. There's no, it's just me. Like, this is the big like move. Because one could argue that even in Canada, I still did have family around, even if I needed someone. But this move will be a big one. And so I thought, it might be best to take a beat, figure out what's going on mentally, figure out what's going on, kind of get a better sense of kind of who I am and like what I want out of this like next chapter of my life, to kind of be more intentional with like what I want for myself and what I want for the future. And so that was a big part of it. So yeah, I think like primarily it was just taken because I think I needed a break, I needed a pause, I needed an intermission. And I think now that I have taken it, I can say I definitely feel better prepared to go. I don't think you'll ever be fully ready for picking up your life at 19, but as prepared as you can be, you know.
Yeah, yes. And what did the friends who have seen the way you've shown up over your entire life, what did they think of the gap year? Were they instrumental in helping you make that decision? Did you make it in isolation? What's been going on there?
I mean, don't get me wrong, they were in support of it, but I also think it was a decision of like, the thing is, it's not that I don't know myself and know my body and know when I'm kind of pushing it too far, so I just don't listen. I know I'm going too far, I know I'm doing too much, but I just don't stop. And so at this point, I was like, okay, Victoria, this is a little bit more serious than just pushing through for midterms. You have to actually, this is a move. Like, this is big. This is new language. This is new country. This is, possibly the rest of your life. Or at least, very least, the next few years. And you are going to have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet over there. Do you think that's something you are capable of doing right now? And like, no, no, I wasn't. Had I gone back then, it would have been the same thing. Pushing through, you're terribly unhappy, you have some kind of burnout throughout the semester, your grades drop, it would be a whole thing. And I'm going there on a full scholarship, which means that I have to keep my grades up in order for that scholarship to renew. So it's really just a kind of like, my friends did support the idea once I brought it up, but I think it was me just being like, I kind of have to listen to the warning signs now. Otherwise, there's no other option.
Okay, so you are someone who does listen. You do listen. There was a point at which you listened to your body. It just took a lot of feedback and a lot of harm in a sense. So, but you made it to the point where you were listening.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And then just something else that you talked about, some of those labels, because you're always going to be so much younger than your cohort. You are 19, going to Europe to study at university, and you will forever be younger. Does the gap between you and your colleagues and peers feel smaller as you get older, or will that continue, those high expectations because you're younger? Are they going to fuel some of what you experience abroad?
It's an interesting question because I think ultimately, I think as I'm getting older, it's occurring to me that the gap between me and my peers has never really been an age gap as much as it's been like a maturity gap or like a life experience gap. Because heading to university, my thought was like, it'll be very different from high school. Because high school, you constantly have to prove yourself to everyone, because you're young and you're female. And so if it's not one thing, it's the other. If it's not guys trying to talk over you because they think they have the right to, it's people shutting you down because they don't think you have anything meaningful to contribute to the conversation. Um, and this was in spite of the fact that I was still like topping the class, but it was never enough to prove that like I could go toe to toe with my peers. It was never enough. There was always something that needed to be found to like exclude me or like one up me or something to that effect. And I always thought it was because of the age thing, that we were, at developmentally different stages. I was chronologically 11, emotionally elsewhere, and they were 14, 15. And I thought that it was that, eventually, like, I would hit 14 and I would understand that, it would be different. Like, I always kind of assumed that once I got up in age, I say up in age, like 14 is not still incredibly young, but I always kind of figured that once I got, like, older and older, that maybe it would make sense to me. And then it never did. And I went to university and I met some, like, really great people at university, and I met other people at university. And I think at that point it kind of indicated to me that like, you guys are all the same age. You guys are all like the same age. Some of you are older, some of you are younger. Like I have friends that are 7 years older than me, and I have friends that are 3. And it's a maturity thing. It's, are you gonna stay, it's do you want to feel superior or not? Is I think what it boiled down to in a lot of cases is, do you want to feel like you have something over me? Does the concept of me being significantly younger than you make you uncomfortable? Which is a hard thing to discuss, I appreciate, because, like, I go to pretty competitive schools. I went to UTM. I'm headed to University of Helsinki soon. Like, I admit they're competitive schools, and so the people you interact with are obviously going to be competitive people, but I really do think a lot of it boils down to how uncomfortable do I make you? How uncomfortable do you want to be here? Because I I think I deal with everybody the same. I think we're all looking for the same thing. We just want to do well. We want to be accepted by our peers. We want to, be a part of the group. And I think the only thing that's ever really made the difference is like, does the other person want this to be a relationship on equal footing? Does the other person acknowledge that, like, we're all here just from different life circumstances and we're just trying to make things work? Or is it a constant, like, point of comparison? Is it a maturity gap? Is it a, I don't like that you're that much younger than me? It kind of throws me off. Um, Because I thought the whole, like, excluding me from discussions, like, as a joke, back in high school, or like constantly like whispering things like over me or around me, kind of would have ended when I left high school, and it did not. And I think that's what kind of like brought it to my attention. So I think, people, we're all individuals and we all make our own choices as to how we want to interact with the world and how we want to see the people in it. And so I think, I don't think as age is going to make the difference. I think it's going to be maturity and how willing people are to engage with someone that's different from them.
In hearing you kind of speak and break down the question that comes to me is, so is 19-year-old Victoria less invested in spending time proving, disproving versus 16-year-old Victoria? Because what I'm hearing is that you are seeing the same behavior from people, which may continue independent of the age, but you've stepped back or see that it's a choice to engage. So does 19-year-old Victoria have a different level of investment in proving, disproving that that perception that people are having?
Um, I think there is an element that is like, I don't think I have anything left to prove to, or I wouldn't say anything left to prove. I'm obviously still very young and there's still a lot of life left to live, but I would say, like, as far as my peers go, I don't think I have anything left to prove to them at this point. I think I've done enough. I think if there's someone I have to prove something to, I think it's probably me at this stage. I think if there's anyone that I have to kind of show up for right now, it's me. And I also think, like, I'm definitely a lot better at this than I was at 16, but I also think I'm just generally less invested. I think that might be, I've yet to determine if it's a consequence of adulthood or not, because to be fair, I've only been an adult for less than 2 years. But I think I'm just generally less invested. I think because when I was younger, you're like 11, 12, fitting in is really important to you, or like having friends is really important to you, because those are like big developmental years. You're starting to kind of like branch away from your parents and branch into these social groups. But I think, I don't know, I got to a point where it's just like, it's just not worth it. What's the point of trying to prove yourself to people who don't want to engage with you in good faith, who aren't trying to be here to be your friend? I think the closest friends that I've made throughout university are people that I've become friends with, not because I was trying to prove myself, but because we just clicked. There was something we liked, there was something we were interested in, we bonded over that. I don't know what more I could possibly prove to someone in my age group. I've done it. Like, I think I'm sure there are a lot of critiques you could have about me, but not like showing up and like proving myself, or like not being dedicated is not one of them. I think I have shown that I can do the work, that I have earned my place in a lot of different ways, and I don't know, I don't think there's anything left to say. I think if you want to interact with me, you can, and if you don't, that's fine too.
Fair enough. That is your that's the offering and the opportunity for people going forward as you move ahead and create new relationships. You've already got that standard where your energy matters. Because what I also think I heard you say, now that you're not investing as much physical, emotional, or mental capacity in meeting people where they think you should be, does that mean you have more capacity to focus on yourself? What does that energy exchange look like if you're less doing less of one effort to show up for others and putting that toward yourself?
I think it just means like I'm not, I should be clear. I don't mean that I'm not putting effort into relationships. I just mean that I'm not putting effort into faking myself, or like
Yes.
being a different person in those
Yes.
relationships. And I think honestly, a lot of that energy is just going to like doing things I want to do and being more like myself. I spent so much time thinking that if I could like just figure out how to be the person that people were looking for, that maybe I could have these relationships. And then at a certain point, I kind of had to ask myself, why was I even looking for these relationships? What do you want from people that don't want you? Like, what are you looking for from relationships if you can't be authentically you in that relationship? Because at best, it's living a lie. They like someone that's not real, and at worst, you sit there and you get more dissatisfied and more frustrated because it's not you. They don't like you, and you have to kind of live with that dichotomy of they like an idea of you, but they don't like you. And I, perhaps I'm not evolved yet. Check back with me in 5 years, but I couldn't manage that game. So I just stopped and I started being more myself. And I don't know, I think as a result, like, I have long term friendships, or well, as long term as they can be. I've just graduated, but I have like strong friendships from university now because they're just people that I didn't see a point in making it up anymore. I just thought they were cool because they were authentically themselves and they did what they wanted to do and they were their own person. And I was like, you know what? I like you. We should be friends. That was quite literally my whole approach. Of instead of just making it up, I'll just walk over and I'll be like, hey, I think you're cool. Do you want to be friends? And it worked. I don't know, and they like me, so plus. But yeah, I think it's just it's I think it's been really good for me because I've got to see that like I don't need to put it on to be accepted, to be part of the group. Like I can just make my own group. I don't need to be this idea of a person that I'm not. So, yeah.
Thank you. And again, just in closing and looking, just recognizing that there's an opportunity if there are questions. But the last thing I'd like to ask you is this sense of you started by speaking about 19-year-old Victoria's conversations with 16-year-old Victoria. If someone is listening who might be in a similar spot of being 16, being younger than, being in a position of making a really big transition, not necessarily focused on the age, but what else could 19-year-old Victoria offer in looking back and thinking about what would I like to share?
I think my biggest piece of advice is that there's not much you can do if you're lying to yourself. There's not much you can do if you and yourself are on opposing teams. In order to make the most of whatever opportunity that you have in front of you, you have to be honest with yourself about the person you are, about what you want. You have to take care of you and look out for you. Not because everyone in the world is against you, not because the opportunity is at odds with you in some way, but because in order to get or in order to achieve that which will best serve you, you need to first kind of have an idea of what will best serve you. And you'll only really know that if you're working with yourself. Like, I wholeheartedly believe that if at 16 I had had the wherewithal to sit there and think, what do I want? Like, outside of what everyone else around me might want, what everyone else around me is expecting, outside of all of this pressure that I'm putting on myself, like what at my core, what do I want out of all of this? What do I hope to accomplish? What are my ambitions? No matter how frivolous or extravagant, just what do I want? I do believe that the result would have probably been the same, if not better, as far as grades go, but I would have been happier. I would have been more fulfilled. I would have left with more memories of things I wanted to do. I would have tried more. I would have been different, but different better. So I think my general advice is you have to always be playing on the same team as yourself. And the minute you realize you're not, you need to stop and reevaluate because you are only hurting yourself in the long run. Even if it doesn't feel like it now, you are hurting yourself in the long run. So that's my piece.
That's your experience. And thank you so much for making that so personal and really reflecting on what worked for you, what didn't work for you, because sometimes it's helpful to see where someone else has been because it might flag or draw a bit of a parallel going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, Princess, I'm going to check to see if there are any questions or any comments, just taking a look at that piece there. And it doesn't appear that there are any questions or comments. So, Victoria, I just want to, again, thank you for walking us through the journey that is so young in so many ways and so profound in other ways, and also just the beginning from what I've heard you say.
Yes.
Thank you for being here with us on Reframed.
And thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.